My son stopped me on his front porch while I was still holding the cranberry dish his mother had used for 32 Thanksgivings. "Dad, you can't come in." Behind him, coats filled the hallway hooks. Someone laughed near the dining room. Sage and roasted onions drifted through the open door. I thought I misunderstood him. "I'm 20 minutes early," I said. "I can wait in the kitchen." Evan kept one hand on the door, as if I might push past him. "Lauren wants one peaceful holiday. No questions about the business, no comments about money, just family." I looked at the yellow stoneware bowl in my hands. Ruth's handwriting was taped beneath the lid because my granddaughter Maya had asked for the recipe. "I am family," I said. Evan glanced over his shoulder before answering. "Not today." Some sentences are answered, others are carried away because answering would cost the last piece of dignity left. I carried that one back to my car. Before I tell you what I did 3 days later, tell me where you're listening from tonight. Family wounds sound different in every house, but many leave us standing in the same cold place. I set the cranberry dish on the passenger seat and fastened the seatbelt around it. Ruth used to laugh when I did that. "Walter," she would say, "it's a bowl, not a grandchild." That morning, it was the only thing that still felt welcome. I parked beside a closed pharmacy 2 blocks away and watched families turn into Evans Street with pies on their laps. At 12:17, my phone lit up. It was a message from Lauren. "Please don't make this harder. Evan has been under tremendous pressure. No apology, no invitation to return, just a request that I make my own rejection easier for them." I read it once, placed the phone face down, and opened the glove compartment. Inside was a cream envelope from Melissa Grant, the attorney who had handled our estate planning after Ruth died. I had been carrying it for 6 weeks. The envelope contained a reminder to review the Bennett Family Trust. I had ignored 2 appointments already. That afternoon, I called her office and left a message. "My name is Walter Bennett," I said. "I'm ready to make the changes we discussed." I did not explain which changes. I was not certain yet. But by the time I drove away from that pharmacy, I knew one thing. My son would never again be allowed to confuse my love with his ownership. Evan was 42. As a boy, he followed me through the backyard with orange survey flags from my city truck, building imaginary highways between Ruth's tomato plants. When he was 9, an ice storm cut the power before Thanksgiving dinner. Evan and I built a fire, warmed rolls in a cast iron pan, and ate cranberry sauce from paper cups. Ruth wrote "Storm Thanksgiving" on the back of her recipe card and drew a crooked lightning bolt beside it. Evan sat between us beneath a wool blanket and called it our best holiday. For years, he asked her to retell that story whenever the weather turned cold. That was the son I still saw when I looked at him too quickly. The man on the porch had arrived slowly. After college, Evan's first restaurant failed. Ruth and I covered overdue payroll for 6 employees. Later, we helped with his house down payment while postponing our garage repair and funded Maya and Owen's education accounts. Helping was not the mistake. My mistake was never asking whether Evan was learning independence or learning that I would absorb every consequence. Ruth asked before I did. 2 months before she died, she sat beside me while I reviewed the trust. It held our lake cabin, an investment account, and a commercial building whose rent helped fund the grandchildren's education. The remaining value was meant to pass equally to Evan and our daughter, Claire, who were named successor co-trustees. Ruth tapped Evan's name with one finger. "He hears help as a promise," she said. "He's grown up," I told her. "He has grown older." I remember looking at her then. She was thinner from treatment, but her eyes were steady. "What do you want me to do?" "Make sure he knows love is not a deed." I kissed her temple and said we had time to revise it. We did not. After she died, I could barely sort the mail. Melissa Grant reminded me that I could amend the trust whenever I was ready. She also advised me to reconsider Evan as successor trustee. He had already asked whether the lake cabin could be transferred early. I called his question grief. I called Ruth's warning worry. I called my silence peace. That is how a father can help build the very entitlement that later excludes him. Claire called while I was eating alone at a diner near the interstate. "Did he tell you not to come?" she asked. She knew Lauren was upset, but never expected Evan to stop me. He had told her I embarrassed him about the cabin. 3 weeks earlier, my lake neighbor, Ed Palmer, had photographed Evan with a real estate photographer on the dock. Evan claimed Lauren wanted family pictures, although no children were there. "He says you keep changing your mind about giving him the cabin," Claire said. "I never agreed to give it to him." "I know. Then why stay quiet?" "I was trying to keep Thanksgiving peaceful." Across the diner, a family pulled in another chair for an older woman. Claire admitted she had avoided Evan's dinner by claiming a migraine. It was avoidance, not loyalty, and I recognized it because I had practiced it for years. "Call me tomorrow," I said. That evening, Evan called once. I let it ring. At 9:40, he left a voicemail. "I hope you understand why we needed space. You have been tense about the trust, and the kids notice. We can talk after the holiday." He said, "The trust, as if it were a family member I had brought to dinner without permission." At 8 the next morning, before Melissa returned my call, I called him back. "I want one plain answer before I change anything," I said. "Why did you turn me away?" He repeated that Lauren wanted peace. He admitted Travis had invited 2 potential Oakline investors. "And what had you told them about the cabin?" "That it would stay in the family." "Did I promise it to you?" He paused, then said, "You know what Mom wanted." I asked whether he was sorry for stopping me at the door. "I am not relitigating Thanksgiving," he said. "Just send me the trust certification when Melissa calls. I am giving you a chance to correct this before lawyers become involved. You are the one making it legal." After we hung up, I wrote down his words. I had spent years softening them until they sounded forgivable without requiring change. Melissa returned my call 20 minutes later. "I can see you at 11, she said, "but we are not rewriting an estate plan in one angry conversation." I agree. She told me to bring the trust, account statements, and cabin records. They were already in a blue accordion folder beneath my desk. In her small conference room, I described the porch, the photographer, Evan's claim that I had promised him the property, and Ruth's warning. "What do you want the trust to accomplish now?" Melissa asked. The question slowed me down. I don't want Evan controlling Claire's share. That is sensible. I don't want him controlling the grandchildren's education money. We can appoint an independent successor trustee, and I don't want him inheriting property he already treats as his. Melissa folded her hands. Removing a child as a beneficiary is legally possible. It is also emotionally permanent in ways clients sometimes underestimate, even when the document can be changed again. I'm not trying to erase my son. Then tell me the difference between removing him and protecting yourself. I looked at the blue folder. The difference is the children, I said. Maya and Owen should not lose their education because their father mistook my assets for his future. We worked for nearly 2 hours. The revision removed Evan as successor trustee and outright beneficiary. An independent trust protected Maya and Owen's education, health, and genuine needs, beyond Evan's control. Claire remained a beneficiary, but would not control her brother's children. The cabin would be sold unless the grandchildren later chose and could afford to keep it. Melissa drafted the amendment and a new certification of trust. Then she pushed the documents away from me. "Take them home," she said. "I came to sign. You came the morning after being rejected. Read them over the weekend. Call me Monday. If this is still your decision, we will sign with witnesses and a notary." I wanted to object. Instead, I thanked her. That weekend, Evan wrote that we should move past Thursday, then asked for the current trust certification for a financing conversation. Not "how are you," not "I am sorry." On Sunday night, I placed Ruth's lightning-marked recipe beside the amendment and read every page twice. On Monday morning, I returned to Melissa's office. 2 staff members witnessed my signature. A notary checked my identification and watched me sign the amendment, the successor trustee change, and the updated asset schedule. At 10:26, Evan's name was removed from the Bennett Family Trust. I did not call him from the parking lot. I did not send a photograph of the signature. I drove home, washed Ruth's yellow bowl, and put it back in the cabinet. Before noon, Evan emailed me. He needed the trust certification that day for what he called a time-sensitive financing conversation. I asked what asset was being financed. He admitted it was Oakline, his newest plan with Lauren's brother Travis. They wanted to turn an abandoned textile building into a restaurant and event space. Evan had shown me drawings months earlier. I had called them ambitious. He had apparently heard approval. When I called, he insisted the trust was not directly involved. The lender only wanted proof of his long-term stability. "You mean an inheritance," I said. "I mean family backing," I asked when I had agreed to back Oakline. He answered with the old complaint that I encouraged him until money became real, then acted as if he had invented the conversation. "Come to my house tonight," I said. "Alone. We will talk clearly." Lauren came with him. They kept their coats on at my kitchen table. I poured coffee and asked Evan to explain exactly why he had stopped me at the door. He said he feared I would mention the cabin in front of their guests. When I asked who those guests were, Lauren denied that any lender had attended. Evan finally admitted Travis had invited 2 potential Oakline investors. "What exactly had you told them?" "That the cabin was part of our long-term family plan. It is part of my trust, which comes to us eventually." I told him property did not become his because he expected to inherit it. Lauren called the conversation proof that they had needed one peaceful holiday. Lauren had grown up moving twice, in 1 year, after her father's construction company failed. I understood why Oakline looked to her like protection against that kind of instability. What I could not accept was turning my property into that protection without asking me. "You banned me because the truth would have embarrassed you." Evan called it asking for space. I reminded him that he had watched me carry his mother's dish back to my car. For several seconds he stared at the table. I thought shame might reach him. Then he asked whether we could stop making everything about a bowl. I asked about the photographer at the lake. Evan claimed the cabin images only showed the kind of guest experience Oakline would create. He admitted describing it as family property, but would not say whether he had claimed I approved its use. He stood and said he would not be interrogated. Lauren picked up her purse. Before leaving, Evan warned that if Oakline died because I refused to help, the choice would belong to me. No, I said. Oakline existed before my consent. That was your choice. The next morning, I called Ed Palmer at the lake. Ed was 76 and had lived across the inlet for almost 30 years. He disliked family drama, which was one reason I trusted him. He remembered a woman measuring the cabin and a man walking the property line. The man had given him a card. Martin Cole, commercial real estate consultant. When I called Martin and identified myself as the legal owner through the trust, he became careful. He confirmed that someone had described the property as an expected family transfer and that he had prepared a preliminary market opinion. He would not name his client or release the report. I did not need either. I formally told him the trust had approved no sale, transfer, pledge, or commercial use, and asked him to confirm receipt in writing. He did that afternoon. Melissa sent a separate letter to Evan, Travis, and the prospective lender. It accused no one of fraud. It simply stated that only the acting trustee could represent, transfer, encumber, or pledge trust property. Then I drove to the lake with a locksmith. The cabin used a keypad because the family visited throughout the year. Evan and Claire both knew the code. I changed it. I did not ban the grandchildren. Claire and Maya could still arrange visits through me, but no adult would enter again without asking. The following Saturday, Claire brought Maya and Owen to the lake. I gave her a temporary code that expired Sunday night. It was a small technical detail, but it mattered to me. A boundary against Evan did not need to become a locked door for his children. Owen ran toward the dock before Claire had finished parking. Maya carried 2 grocery bags and asked whether the cabin still had the pancake griddle Ruth used. We spent the morning doing ordinary things. Claire swept pine needles from the porch. Owen checked every cabinet for cocoa. Maya sat at the kitchen counter and copied Ruth's cranberry recipe from the original card. She paused at the crooked lightning bolt. Grandma drew this? During the storm Thanksgiving, I told them about the power failure, the paper cups, and Evan declaring it our best holiday. Owen laughed at the idea of his father eating dinner under a blanket. Maya did not laugh for long. "Why didn't Dad come today?" she asked. Claire stopped sweeping. I told Maya her father and I were handling an adult disagreement. I would not ask her to take a side, and I would not discuss money with her. Is he still allowed here? He is allowed to ask. That answer seemed to satisfy Owen. Maya understood the difference. Before leaving, she placed her copied recipe beside the yellow bowl and took a photograph with her phone. She said she wanted to make the cranberries for Christmas. I watched the 3 of them drive away, then checked the temporary code on my phone. It would stop working at midnight the next day. The cabin felt quieter after they left, but not empty. For the first time since Thanksgiving, I had enforced a limit without confusing it with rejection. By the following Friday, Evan had left 7 messages. The early ones were angry. Later, he said Travis's investors were reconsidering and asked me to call, before matters became worse. I asked what fixing the problem required. He wanted Melissa's letter withdrawn and a trust guarantee capped at $200,000. I refused. He argued that the trust existed for family security. That is your business risk, not the trust's, I said. After a pause, he reached for the sentence he had used in one form or another since Ruth died. If Mom were here, she would help me. I gripped the edge of my desk and told him Ruth had warned me about his habit of hearing help as a promise. He ended the call. The following week, Claire came to my house carrying soup, and the expression she wore when she had spent too long deciding whether to tell the truth. She admitted that Evan had told Travis and the investors I planned to transfer the cabin after New Year's. He had not claimed I signed anything. He called it a family understanding. There was no understanding. Claire also described Thanksgiving. Before dinner, Travis had toasted Evan and Lauren, congratulated them on Oakline, and announced that the Bennett Lake property was the foundation making it possible. No one corrected him. Claire had left before the meal rather than challenge Evan in front of Maya, Owen, Lauren's parents, and the investors. She thought silence might keep the family together. It kept the lie together, I said. She accepted that without defending herself. I'm sorry, Dad. It was the first apology anyone had offered me. I told her Evan believed I had only changed the cabin code. Then I explained that he had already been removed as successor trustee and outright beneficiary, while Maya and Owen remained protected. Claire walked to Ruth's photograph on the mantel. Mom would hate this, she said. After a moment, she added, she would also understand it. She asked whether the decision was only about Thanksgiving. Thanksgiving was the day I stopped editing the rest of the story. For the first time, I gave her the whole pattern, the failed restaurant payroll, the down payment, the requests after Ruth died, and the certification Evan wanted for Oakline. Claire had known pieces. Neither of us had wanted to arrange them. I told her he would receive one more chance to tell the truth. She studied me before saying, he wants the cabin more than he wants to lose you. That is not the same as wanting me. She did not argue. 2 days later, a certified envelope arrived from a law firm representing Evan and Travis's development company. It requested confirmation of my previously expressed intent to contribute the cabin or equivalent collateral. A one-page project summary listed an anticipated family real estate contribution valued at $640,000. No deed, no signature, no address, just my property, converted into a line in someone else's plan. Melissa explained that it was not a lien and transferred nothing. It did, however, prove that Oakline had been presented to third parties as if the cabin were expected capital. I asked whether the conduct required police involvement. She said no. The correct response was to preserve the documents, correct the representation, and require future trust communications through counsel. The documents were ordinary: dates, careful wording, and numbers in a project summary. Together, they showed how confidently Evan had relied on my reluctance to object. Melissa sent the deed trust authority and my written denial of any promised contribution to the other law firm. 3 days later, Oakline's lender removed the family property assumption from its review. The project did not collapse. It became what it had always been without me: underfunded. Evan responded with a family email to Claire, Lauren's parents, and 2 cousins. He described me as grief-stricken, isolated, and willing to damage arrangements Ruth had wanted. He omitted the porch, the cabin valuation, and his request for a $200,000 guarantee. My boundary became his evidence that something was wrong with me. Claire replied to everyone with the missing facts. She wrote that I had been excluded after Evan represented trust property as future business collateral. He called me almost immediately and accused me of turning her against him. I reminded him that she had corrected a misleading email, just as he had shared claims about my judgment. He said I would rather punish him than watch him succeed. When you were 9, you built a highway through my tomatoes with survey flags, I said. I moved the tomatoes because I wanted your ideas to have room. He said he had no time for a childhood story. I have been moving the tomatoes for 33 years. Your road has to go around something now. He hung up again. For almost 2 weeks, we did not speak. The silence ended at Maya's winter concert. I arrived early and took a seat near the aisle. When Evan and Lauren came in with Owen, they stopped when they saw me. Lauren looked toward the empty seats behind them. Evan walked over. "Can we sit here?" he asked. It was such a small request that I nearly mistook it for repair. Owen climbed into the seat beside me and showed me the program. Maya's name was printed under the 7th grade choir. During the final song, Evan's shoulder touched mine. Neither of us moved away. Afterward, Maya ran to us in her navy dress and wrapped both arms around my waist. Evan watched her. His face softened in a way I remembered. In the parking lot, he asked whether I would come to dinner Sunday. "Just us," he said. "No investors, no business talk. I owe you a real apology." I wanted that sentence more than I trusted it. On Sunday, I went. My place card was beside Lauren's father at the table. Ruth's cranberry recipe was propped against the sugar bowl. Maya had copied it in careful handwriting and added a small lightning bolt at the bottom. Lauren served pot roast. Owen told me about a model bridge he was building. Evan asked about my volunteer work at the community college. For nearly an hour, no one mentioned Oakline or the trust. Then Evan put down his fork. "I handled Thanksgiving badly," he said. Lauren looked at him, waiting. "I should not have stopped you at the door." I waited for the rest. I was under pressure, and I let that pressure make the decision. "That is an explanation," I said. "What is the apology?" He swallowed. "I'm sorry I embarrassed you." "You did not embarrass me. You excluded me." "I'm sorry I excluded you. It was not perfect. It was not warm, but it was the first time he had named what he did." "Thank you," I said. Lauren reached across the table and touched his wrist. Maya smiled at me. For a few minutes I let myself imagine Christmas in that room. I imagined Evan calling without needing a document. I imagined the trust amendment resting unused in Melissa's file because my son had finally understood why it existed. After dessert, Lauren sent the children upstairs to choose a movie. Evan brought a thin gray folder from the sideboard. The hope in me did not disappear at once. It folded slowly. "What is that?" I asked. "A way forward." Inside was a proposed family support agreement. It did not pledge the cabin directly. Instead, it asked me to commit the trust's commercial building income to Oakline for 5 years, up to $150,000. The document also named Evan as an authorized liaison for trust financial information. "You said no business talk." "This is family talk," Lauren said. I looked at Evan. "Was dinner part of this?" "No, it wasn't." Then put it away. Dad, please read it. I have. You read one page. One page told me you want rent that pays for your children's education. Only temporarily. Oakline will repay it. If Oakline succeeds, when it succeeds, and if it does not. He spread his hands. That is why families share risk. No, families discuss risk before one member promises another member's property. His apology had lasted 19 minutes. I closed the folder and slid it back. I called you the morning after Thanksgiving and asked for the truth. Tonight, I came because you said dinner was about us. Both conversations returned to my property. He looked toward the stairs. You are going to make the kids pay because you are angry with me. Their education money is protected. He studied my face. What did you change? I stood and buttoned my coat. You will learn that with Melissa present. Lauren's chair scraped the floor. You already changed the trust? I picked up the copied recipe card Maya had made, then stopped. It belonged in their house. I left it beside my untouched coffee. Evan followed me to the entryway. Dad, don't walk out like this. I came for dinner. You brought paperwork. We are trying to save the project. I was trying to save something else. I left before the children came downstairs. 2 days later, Maya called. She was 13, old enough to recognize tension and young enough to believe adults might stop creating it if she asked the right question. Grandpa, are you coming to my winter concert? I would not miss it. Dad said you might. Did he say why? He said, you are taking space from us. I closed my eyes. I am not taking space from you. Were you sick on Thanksgiving? I wasn't. Another pause. Mom said you decided not to come because you were mad about money. I looked at Ruth's yellow bowl through the glass cabinet door. I came to the house, I said. Your father asked me to leave. Maya did not respond. I heard a door close on her end. He told us you turned around before you got there. I was on the porch. Did you bring Grandma's cranberries? I did. Her breathing changed. I made you a place card. That was the first thing she said that hurt more than the ban itself. What happened to it? I asked. I don't know. Mom took it off the table before people came. I pressed my thumb against the edge of my desk until the wood left a mark. Maya, none of this is your fault. Are you mad at me? No, never. Are you mad at Dad? I am hurt by choices he made. That is for him and me to handle. Can I still call you? Every day. After we ended the call, I sat without moving. Evan had not only excluded me, he had rewritten my absence for his children. He needed me to be the one who had stayed away. That night, I took Ruth's yellow bowl from the cabinet. I washed it, although it was already clean. Then I found the bag of cranberries I had bought for Thanksgiving and poured them into a saucepan. The berries rolled against the metal in small, hard circles. Ruth always added orange peel before the sugar. I had watched her do it for 40 years, but I still opened her recipe card and followed each line. At the bottom, beneath the storm Thanksgiving lightning bolt, she had written another note years later. Save a little for Evan. He eats it cold. I set 2 small bowls on the counter by habit. One for me, one for Ruth. I stood there with the spoon in my hand until the sauce began to burn along the edge of the pan. I turned off the stove, moved one bowl back to the cabinet, and scraped the darkened sugar from the bottom. My hands were steady. until I tried to fold the recipe card. Then I sat at the kitchen table and held it flat beneath my palm. My eyes watered. I kept blinking because I did not want Ruth's handwriting to blur. I tried to keep him close, I said to the empty chair. The refrigerator motor started. A car passed outside. Nothing answered. That was when I finally understood my part in it. I had treated every rescue as proof that I was still needed. After Ruth died, being needed had felt close enough to being loved. Evan learned that asking brought me near. I learned that giving postponed the fear that he might not come near for any other reason. We had built the arrangement together, one emergency at a time. The trust amendment did not correct 30 years. It only stopped the next withdrawal. The following morning, I called Melissa. "Schedule the meeting," I said. "With Evan?" "With Evan and Lauren. Claire may attend if she wants. I am done letting everyone receive a different version." Melissa chose a Tuesday afternoon, 2 weeks before Christmas. The meeting took place in the same small conference room where I had signed the amendment. Evan and Lauren arrived first. Claire sat near the window. Melissa placed copies of the amendment in front of us but kept them closed. Evan spoke before anyone else. "This should never have become a legal meeting. Dad is hurt about Thanksgiving, and we are sorry. But changing an estate over one holiday is unreasonable." He said Oakline was meant to create long-term income for the children and that the cabin had always been discussed as his eventual property. Lauren said they had wanted investors to see a stable family behind the project. She spoke about watching her father's company fail and moving twice before she turned 15. "I was trying to keep our children from living through that," she said. "I understand the fear," I told her. "I do not understand promising my property to solve it." Melissa opened her folder. She laid out Evan's trust certification request, Martin Cole's written confirmation, the project summary listing $640,000 in anticipated family real estate, and the proposed 5-year use of trust income. "Did Mr. Bennett approve any of these commitments?" she asked. "No formal commitment," Evan said. "Any commitment?" He looked at me. "No." Melissa closed the folder. Then third parties were given an expectation the owner never authorized. Evan leaned toward me. "I made assumptions. I admit that. Removing me from the trust is still extreme." "You are no longer a successor trustee," I said. "You are no longer an outright beneficiary, and you have no authority over the cabin, the commercial building, or the investment account." Lauren's hand went to her throat. "What about Maya and Owen?" Evan asked. "Their education, health, and genuine needs remain protected through an independent trustee. So Claire keeps her share, and mine goes to my children?" "Not through you." He looked toward Claire. "You knew?" "I learned afterward," she said. "No one lets Dad control his own property. It was already his." Evan turned back to me. "You do not love someone and erase their name from everything Mom built." I placed Ruth's recipe card on the table. "Your mother built the trust with me. She also warned me that you heard help as a promise. Convenient that she cannot confirm that." Claire lifted her head. "Evan." He looked away, but the words remained. I returned the card to my pocket. "What I still want from you is the truth," I said. "About what? Why you banned me from Thanksgiving. We told you." "You gave me the respectable version." He glanced at Lauren, then spoke without looking at me. "Travis was announcing Oakline. If you were there and corrected him, the investors would think we had no family support. So you removed the fact that did not fit the presentation. You would have humiliated me. I would have said the cabin was not yours. Exactly. That one word carried more truth than every apology before it. My presence had threatened the promise he had already sold. I still love my son, I said. I no longer fund his promises. Melissa slid the amendment toward him. It is valid and in effect, she said. Mr. Bennett may revise it someday, but he has made no promise to do so. Future requests involving trust assets come through this office. Evan did not open the document. He stood and walked out. Lauren followed him. Claire stayed in her chair. After the door closed, she asked whether I wanted her to come home with me. No, I said. Call your brother tomorrow. You think he'll answer? He needs one person who can speak to him without giving him money or defending me. Claire nodded. Nothing practical changed in that room. The bills came later. Oakline lost its original financing structure. The lender did not accuse Evan of a crime. It simply removed the cabin from consideration and required more cash from the sponsors. Travis could not provide it. One investor withdrew. The textile building owner kept part of their deposit under the terms of the reservation agreement. Evan and Lauren lost $18,000 they had already committed. Painful, but not ruin. They scaled the plan down and tried to lease a smaller property. That process exposed another problem. Evan had moved $42,000 from his existing restaurant's reserve account into Oakline without leaving enough for a slow winter. By February, his current restaurant was behind with 2 suppliers. By March, he had reduced his own salary and sold the new pickup he had bought the previous summer. The damage arrived as invoices, lost deposits, supplier calls, and decisions Evan could no longer pass to someone else. Maya continued to call me. At first, Evan listened from the next room. I could hear cabinets closing too loudly behind her. Then one evening he took the phone. "Do not talk to the kids about the trust," he said. "I have not. Do not make me the villain. I told Maya you made choices that hurt me and that it was between us. She thinks I lied about Thanksgiving. You did." He breathed through his nose. "I was trying to protect them from adult conflict. You protected yourself from their questions." He handed the phone back without answering. In April, he came to my house alone. He looked older than he had at Christmas. Not defeated, just tired, in a way money could not hide. I invited him into the kitchen, but he remained standing. His restaurant needed $58,000 to catch up on payroll taxes and suppliers. Wages were current, but he believed summer bookings would save the business only if he survived May. He asked first for a properly documented loan from the trust. When I refused, he asked me to lend the money personally. I won't. He asked whether I was willing to let the restaurant close. I told him closure was not the only choice. He could sell equipment, bring in a partner, renegotiate debt, or borrow against assets he actually owned. He had already sold his truck. He still owned restaurant equity and a house, but Lauren would not agree to risk their home. Then she understands risk better than you did with my cabin. He turned toward the door. I stopped him and made one limited offer. If the restaurant closed owing final wages, he could send verified payroll records to Melissa. I would consider paying the workers directly as a gift, never through him or his company. He called that helping strangers instead of his son. I will not use innocent employees to prove a boundary. I also will not remove the boundary to rescue you. Then he asked whether any path back into the trust remained. Not through an emergency, I said. He wanted to know what that meant. Need cannot put you back in the trust. We have to rebuild a relationship first, and the document may never change. He nodded once. For the first time in my adult son's life, he left my house without money and without slamming the door. The restaurant did not close. Evan negotiated longer terms with 2 suppliers, sold a minority share to his chef, and abandoned Oakline's event space version. The smaller plan became a catering kitchen 18 months later, funded without the cabin. I did not celebrate his losses. I did not finance his recovery. Claire told me he began meeting with a counselor. I did not ask for reports. Maya's calls became easier. Owen started visiting the lake with Claire and me. Evan was not given the keypad code again. In October, almost 11 months after the porch, Evan arrived at my house carrying a grocery bag. "I'm not asking for anything," he said before I could speak. He set the bag on the counter. Inside were cranberries, 2 oranges, and a bag of sugar. Maya had sent him with the copied recipe card from last Christmas. Her lightning bolt was drawn beside Ruth's. Evan touched the edge of the yellow bowl. "Can you show me how Mom made it?" I could have said he already knew. I could have reminded him that he used to eat it cold from the refrigerator. Instead, I handed him the peeler. "Orange first," I said. We worked without discussing the trust. He grated too much peel. I removed half. He added the sugar before the berries softened, and I told him to wait. At one point, he looked at Ruth's handwriting and pressed his lips together. "I should have opened the door," he said. "You should have." I wanted those people to believe I had already become the man I was pretending to be. I stirred the sauce. "And I was evidence that you had not." "You were." For once, his apology arrived without a request attached. The trust remained unchanged. The cabin code remained changed. But when the cranberries cooled, I filled 2 small containers and gave one to him. He held it carefully on the way out. The following Thanksgiving, we ate at Claire's house. There was no announcement, no investor, and no empty chair saved as a weapon. Maya placed Ruth's recipe card beside the yellow bowl. Evan arrived early with rolls. He did not bring a folder. Healing did not restore every key or every line in the trust. It gave us a table where neither of us had to pretend. For the first time in years, we finished Thanksgiving without discussing what I could provide. Would you have left the trust unchanged after Evan finally returned without asking for money or started restoring his inheritance?